Well, good evening. I finally managed to get out to the shooting range to shoot our samples. It finally stopped raining sufficiently to get out there. So just a quick recap. We had a variety of materials: steel, acrylic, aluminium, stainless steel, rubber, fiberboard, vinyl, different plastics like soft polypropylene, thick vinyl tile, Perspex, up to and including the magic of polycarbonate. So now we're back from the range. It is a good opportunity to have a look at the results and see what happened. So let's do that. Okay, so first up is sample 2. And I know you're wanting me to start on sample 1, but the simple answer is sample 1, which was the vinyl tile, the stiff vinyl tile, backed with multiple sheets of aluminium tile, simply exploded when shot, and all I got left was tiny little bits of shrapnel from it. So the first sample that's actually intact, as you can see, was not a success. We don't want to have injuries like this. So I think first of all it's worth noting, you can see the dent pattern follows through, but that's a hell of a ragged hole for a little bullet, especially considering this was not a very good hit. I just clipped the edge with the round. You can just see it went through, and no sooner had it hit the edge than it didn't go through straight. It actually came off straight at an angle and went straight through. So it was hit here and went that way instead, which is interesting. I would have liked to have shot this more, maybe somewhere down there, to see if this was turned. So what we see tearing through this sample, so sample 2 is the FH backed with B. So this is 3mm vinyl tile layered, layered up with 2mm polypropylene. So if you need a source of polypropylene, kids, that's your sort of cheapy, slightly flexible, translucent plastic you might get storage containers made out of. Okay, here we go. Get this tape off. So you can see the tile. You can see some red on it where it's actually pressed. Oh, what the hell, that's pressed through. This isn't even red duct tape. I don't know what that red's off. It's interesting. And it's immediately diverted this way, and yet even though it's gone off at the side, it's removed subsequently more and more of this plastic and tile. So for a relatively poor plastic and what's normal, and for a cheap floor tile that you can do this with, even when it's not being shot, that honestly is quite successful. Well, that's just shattered off. Let's have a look at let's clear this crap away and have a look at the aluminium plate at the back. So aluminium backing plate. Yeah, I had to put gloves on because this stuff's so sharp. It's simply pushed it out of the way and torn it. Huh. Okay, so sample 2, fail. So next up is sample 4, and that's because sample 3, which was our DDAA makeup, excuse me, where the outer layer was actually just roofing shingle, and then it was backed subsequently with 10.5mm of acrylic and then stainless steel and other materials. Again, that one exploded and was unrecoverable. So here we have sample 4. Sample 4 is most interesting. So this is 12mm artificial vitreous material on the outside, followed thereafter by 6.5mm of plywood, and after that 3mm of smooth rubber and 4mm of polycarbonate as the backer. Now you can see from the samples that this failed. I do not have the plasticine backing because that was that ripped out the back so hard it actually took the bag down the range, and I wasn't going to go in the long grass with the snakes to go and find it. So you can see that that definitely failed on that regard. But let's have a look at the plate itself. So we have the front. We can see we've got a good solid hit right about here on the plate. And we can see we have an exit. And the exit is most interesting because the rest of the plate burst open. So let's cut this and have a look at what we've got. Okay, well, surprise, surprise, the plywood broke inside. But if you recall, we didn't expect to necessarily stop bullets. I am more than a little surprised by what's happened with this artificial vitreous material. It has crumbled and shattered. Nice and sharp inside there. And the plan was that this is nice and hard, and an incoming round coming in will smash itself up on here. This is just added as a stiffener, so not a fat lot of ballistic value in that. And then we have some cushioning. So this was the 3mm of rubber, and we can see a bit of vitreous materials has been blasted through along with our bits of wood. That hole, ouch, that hole does not show basically any effective deformation of the round as it's traveled through this. So this 7.62 by 39 round traveled through whatever this was, 12mm of effectively artificial granite, did not deform at all, carried on in a straight line. We can ignore that. We're still in a circular form going through here, and it's only really when it's hit the polycarbonate plate that that's made much difference. That is really interesting. Let's get the back off this and have a look at that. It's most interesting. Okay, so there's our polycarbonate plate. Look at that exit. I mean, we've bent the plate. I don't care about that. We have a large, jagged tear, larger than the diameter of the round, and a small hole preceding it, narrower than the diameter of the round, but with a tear pattern. Well, I guess that's your classic star tear pattern in front of it. The round has gone straight through there and ripped its way through. Okay, so we'll keep the interesting parts. So we kept the interesting part of the previous one. We'll keep these interesting parts to hand so we have some specimens. Let's throw this away and move on. But sample 4 was a disappointing failure. All right, so moving on from 8, we actually have a sample, and this one is 9. And as we can see, this one did fail. I do not have the backing card for this one. It was ripped off. By this time, the test setup I had made was so badly damaged, it simply blew that straight out of the back, which I was more than a little unhappy about. I didn't get a very good hit on this one. Just clipped it in the corner there. And sample 9 is 2.5mm Perspex on the outside, backed with vinyl tile, and polypropylene and resin-impregnated fibre board. So let's, we know this one failed. It probably wasn't a very good hit. That doesn't really matter for these purposes. Cut our way in. I guess it's like one of those stupid unboxing videos. Come on. Let's go. So that's what our sandwich looked like originally, with our Perspex on the outside, resin-impregnated fiberboard, other materials coming through here. Oh, already started to get dropping out. All right, let's get this open. Okay, first things first, this is the outer face seen from the inside. As you see, only clipped the edge, but it caused massive shattering of the Perspex in a really odd way. You'd expect it to maybe circular cracking out from where the round has gone through, but nope. Let's orientate this. So the vinyl tile again. I think we can discount vinyl. This type of vinyl tile is much of a valued material. Our polypropylene has showed remarkable ability to deform, if not a lot of strength. This stuff is mostly useless. This fiberboard. Interestingly, this piece of polypropylene is substantially worse off. It's like little chunks of... Where's that one from? Oh, that one's from there. The whole corner of that one's gone. Bite out of the tile. Polypropylene again. We've got a nice, rough, ragged hole opening up. Okay, down to brass tacks. Get the bit of steel out. Come on, steel. You can do it. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, that's firmly wedged in there. There's the piece of steel rubber. Come on. I'm not sure I can separate those easily. Let's have a hold these up to the camera. So here we have a piece of steel and a rather ragged, definitely not small, circular, bullet-shaped hole pulled through the corner. You can actually still see the corner of the steel there. And it's ripped its way through the polypropylene. In fact, it's been pushed into the polypropylene really very severely. But the back deformation on it is not particularly severe. The polypropylene has not deformed a lot at all. 10 millimeters, maybe at most. There we go. Just got to rotate it out. So we've got a classic ragged exit hole from a steel plate, which is otherwise mostly unharmed. And we have our beautiful piece of magic polypropylene, polycarbonate. So I'd left that film on, so when I take it off, you can see it without scratching. That's lovely. Can you just see the way the light moves on there to see the deformation in it? See, until it gets to about there. So no deformation at all here. And when we get to about there in the light, you can see the light stops moving evenly across the surface. So we don't have any deformation until we're relatively local to it. That's why everyone loves polycarbonate, I guess. So we'll keep this one, we'll keep this one, we'll throw this crap away, and we'll move on with the next one. This one, however, was a fail. Okay, moving on, sample 10. Even before I show you the back, as you can see, the polystyrene, this crap falling out, the polythene bag with the Play-Doh in it was just destroyed at the back. In fact, you can actually see little bits of leather from the panel that was dragged down range. So this was a complete failure. That isn't that isn't what you want at all. However, sample 10. So just to be clear, sample 10 was vinyl tile on the outside, the flexible vinyl tile, followed by smooth rubber. Then we have a vitreous material, category P, and then double A, which is our 10.5 millimeters of acrylic at the back. Excuse me. And finally, right at the end, we have this wooden backing. So let's see how we can get into this. There's bits of whatever that is. Oh, that's the acrylic. let's just far apart. Let's hold this up to the camera so you can see. That is a very unpleasant hole. In fact, I can see we have a tiny, tiny hole in the rubber, and then it's just exploded through this vitreous material and blown out the stiffener. So let's cut our way in anyway, even though we know it's failed. If I slice myself over on camera, I will be deleting that video and uploading one. So if you see a later video with me with a plaster on my hand, you'll know what happened. Okay, oh dear. All right, let's start with the outside. Just peel our way in. That's the problem with duct tape, it's sticky. Look at the size of that. This was a 7.62 caliber, round. And it's made a pinpoint, I mean, this is the diameter of my awl. It's narrower than my awl, for Christ's sake. So that's a stretch. You can actually see the silver around there. That's really interesting that would actually work more like a rubber. In fact, the rubber has worked exactly like rubber. This was the textured rubber at the back. So as the round's gone through, it's squeezed it. I would hope it's taken some energy out of it, but it's left such a tiny actual final hole in the rubber. That's quite remarkable to me. I wasn't expecting that at all. However, bad news when we get to the vitreous material. I had high hopes for this artificial vitreous material, and it's all turning out to be crap. This is just, not only has it exploded, it hasn't done anything of any particular value either. Let's see, force that back together. Our vinyl, our acrylic slab hasn't done much either. For a relatively soft plastic, which I was hoping to deform, it has simply shattered. Look at that fracture pattern there. I certainly wasn't expecting that. That is most disappointing. I had good hopes for this material. Glad I didn't buy too much of it. And then our 12mm wood backing. We're not going to express even the vaguest surprise that a piece of hardboard didn't stop a bullet. I do find it interesting looking at it this way to see that as it's gone through, it's actually torn a progressively wider hole. Huh? This was meant to just be a stiffener. So I think I'm going to keep this one and this one, and we'll throw this crap away. This was a fail, and we'll move on. Okay, so moving on from the failure of our vitreous material once more, we come on to sample 11. Once more, this is an artificial vitreous material. This one is backed with Perspex, however. So I did, as I said, have good hopes for this vitreous material. And on the outside, I've zoomed in a little too close. Let's zoom out a little bit, sorry. We have a relatively small entry hole. And as you can tell by the fact my awl goes through, this was once more a fail. And as I was saying, by this time in the test, the backing panel had just been destroyed. So from this point, there are very few back deformation samples which survived after this, sadly. So let's have a look at 11 anyway. I do not have much optimism. Our vitreous material did a fat lot. Well, our shingle certainly did in the middle. All right, rubber. Everyone loves rubber. Just like before, a tiny hole, but here we have a lot of cracking around it where it's forced a lot of sharp material. You can see blades of little bits of Perspex in there that are being forced through. Indeed, this is the Perspex from the inside. Let's clear the loose crap out of the way. We can see our entry hole here. So as the rounds come through, it's removed probably 3 times, 1, 2, maybe 2.5 times the round's diameter as a whole as it's travelled through the Perspex. God. Again, the plan was that this vitreous material was hard enough to start to break up the round, and this vitreous material has proven to be most disappointingly useless. However, they say science is about your failures as much as your successes. Well, they would say that. That's what every person who fails says, right? Oh dear. Oops. So once more, this thick acrylic material, which I was really quite optimistic about because it was quite soft, has simply shattered when struck. So you can see the rounds come through there, and this is just broken into pieces. Most disappointing for a soft material. This was our backing sheet. This is just aluminium. The only plus point, I guess, is the diameter of that hole. This was a 762, and that hole is 12 millimeters in diameter. So if there is any success to be gleaned from this, it's that in traveling through this material, it does seem to have started to flatten the round a little bit. However, sample 11, another failure. So just to catch up before we get back to the samples as a brief interlude, this is what remains of my sample test rig, which I'd spent a lot of time on and was quite pleased with, and it literally just exploded. It did not stand up very well as the rounds took a battering. You can actually see some flattening. There was so much energy being transferred into the panels, especially the ones which had worked, that over time it simply broke apart. I'm only showing you this to prove a point that this one, whichever sample this one, I hadn't noticed at the time, has actually managed to stop a bullet. So what's happened is the round has gone through the test plate and has lost enough energy that it's been stopped in this little bit of wood here. Haha, look at that. All right, this forms no part of my test, but that is genuinely interesting, the way it's sort of turned into an inverted cone. I can't even find the core. The core isn't even there. This is literally just the shell. So when we were making the special samples with the nails, which we'll come on to later, this was the entire theory behind them, in that they would manage to tear the bullet apart and separate the jacket from the actual core, because they're not actually welded together or anything, they're just pressed together. And this indeed has managed to do that, but I don't know which sample this was from because I've only just found it. So anyway, this is what happened to the test rig. So bullets are powerful, kids.